The ham was still warm when my mother smiled across the Christmas table and told everyone my grandmother's farm was finally gone. "We closed last week," she said, lifting her glass like she had won a prize. "And honestly, Maren, you need to stop acting hurt. You were never in the will." My brother gave a little laugh and shook his head. Good thing, too. She would have wasted that land on bird feeders and old women's memories. 12 faces turned toward me, waiting for the old Maren to lower her eyes, swallow the pain, and keep the peace. I did lower my eyes, but only to look at the leather folder beside my chair. Inside it was the deed to that farm, the real will, and one letter my grandmother had written before she died. In less than 2 minutes, my mother's perfect Christmas dinner was going to become the quietest room in Willow County. My name is Maren Bellwether. I am 58 years old, and for 9 years, I was the one who took care of my grandmother, Lenora Voss. Not my mother, who lived 12 minutes away and always said she was too tired. Not my brother Callum, who came only when there was pie or property to discuss. Me. I drove out to Lenora's white farmhouse every Tuesday and Friday. I checked her blood pressure, paid her bills, cleaned her wood stove, planted her herbs, and sat beside her kitchen window while she told me stories about storms, harvests, and people who smiled while stealing. She used to tap the table with one crooked finger and say, "Maren, papers remember what people deny." I thought she was just being old and wise. I did not know she was warning me. 3 weeks before she passed, Grandma Lenora pressed a brass key into my hand. She was lying in her bed under the blue quilt she had made after Grandpa died. Her hands were thin, but her eyes were clear. "When they start talking too much," she whispered, "go to the cedar chest." I asked her who she meant. She only smiled sadly and said, "The ones who never showed up will show up first when I'm gone." Then she told me to promise one thing: no shouting, no begging, no crying in front of people who enjoyed my tears. "Let the papers do the speaking," she said. I promised because I thought it would comfort her. I had no idea that promise would save everything she loved. After the funeral, my family changed faster than the flowers on her grave. My mother, Veda, wore black lace and accepted sympathy like she had spent years caring for Lenora herself. Callum walked through the farmhouse taking pictures of furniture. His wife, Sloane, opened cupboards and whispered about antiques. My mother stood in the parlor and asked a real estate agent on speakerphone what 32 acres might bring if they moved quickly. I was in the kitchen, holding Grandma's old mug, listening to them price her life before the ground had even settled over her. I wanted to scream. Instead, I remembered the brass key in my pocket. A month later, my cousin Ruskin called a family meeting at my mother's house. Ruskin was not a lawyer. He ran a title office and liked acting important. He placed a folder on the table and read what he called Grandma's final will. According to that will, everything went to my mother. The farmhouse, the land, the small savings account, even the truck in the barn. My name was not there, not once. My mother dabbed her eyes with a dry tissue and said, "Lenora knew who could handle responsibility." Callum leaned back and added, "Don't take it personal, Maren. You were good for errands, but business is different." That sentence did something to me. Not loud, not dramatic. Something inside me simply stopped bending. I knew the will was wrong before Ruskin finished reading it. Grandma would never have called my mother my devoted daughter. She would have rather eaten gravel. The signature was worse. It was too smooth, too pretty, too alive. Grandma's hand had trembled for months. She could not even write a grocery list without the letters dancing. But this signature looked like a school teacher had practiced it 10 times. I asked to see the original filing. My mother's face hardened. "There it is," she said. "Greed. I knew you would show it eventually." Callum laughed again. She thought changing Grandma's bandages made her owner of the farm. Everyone looked at me like I had been caught stealing when I was the only one in that room who had stayed. That night, I went to the cedar chest in Grandma's bedroom. The little brass key opened a flat drawer hidden under old blankets. Inside was a bank envelope, a business card, and a letter with my name on it. The card belonged to an estate attorney named Beatrice Harlan. The envelope held a safe deposit key from Valley Trust Bank. The letter was sealed, and I could not open it at first. I just sat on the floor beside that cedar chest and cried like a child. Not because of the money, because Grandma had known. She had known they would do this. She had known me well enough to leave proof where only I would look. The next morning, I called Beatrice Harlan. When I said Lenora Voss, she went quiet, then told me to come in. Her office smelled like coffee and old books. She pulled out a thick file and showed me Grandma's real will, signed 3 years earlier, witnessed properly, notarized properly, and written in plain language. The farmhouse and 32 acres were left to me. To my granddaughter Maren, it said, because she stayed when staying was hard. The savings were divided among the family, but the land was mine. Beatrice explained that a newer will could replace an older one, but only if it was real. Ruskin's document, she said, had problems all over it. Bad witnesses, strange dates, a signature that looked copied. We could fight it in court, but it would take time. And by then, my mother was already pushing to sell the farm fast. That was when I made the decision that changed everything. I could not stop the auction in time, but I could buy the farm myself, quietly, legally. I formed a small company called North Lantern Properties, using every rule correctly, every filing clean. I put in my savings, borrowed against my little house, and sold the silver coins Grandpa had given me when I was young. The farm was valued at $410,000. But my mother wanted quick money, so she accepted a low starting reserve. She thought some investor would take the land and hand her cash before anyone asked hard questions. She never imagined the investor would be me. Before the auction, Callum called to brag. He had already ordered a fishing boat with his share. My mother had put money down on a kitchen remodel. Sloan was talking about a cruise. None of them had received the money yet, but they were spending it in their minds. Callum told me, "Try not to sulk at Christmas. Mom wants one peaceful holiday after all your drama." I asked him if he ever felt bad about selling Grandma's place. He snorted. "Maren, it was just an old house. You get attached to dead things." I looked out my window at the winter trees and felt a cold calm move through me. They were not just stealing property, they were insulting the only person who had ever made me feel chosen. Stay with this part, because this is where quiet people finally understand their own power. Sometimes revenge is not screaming in someone's face. Sometimes revenge is reading every page, keeping every receipt, and letting selfish people spend money they were never entitled to touch. The auction happened on a rainy October morning. I did not go inside. Beatrice sent a young associate to bid for North Lantern Properties. I sat in my car outside the county hall, gripping my phone. My mother and Callum walked in smiling, dressed like they were attending a celebration. The bidding started low, then climbed. A cattleman wanted the pasture. A builder wanted the road frontage. My company kept bidding. At $438,000, the hammer fell. The farm was sold to North Lantern Properties. My phone buzzed with one message. "It is yours." I watched my mother come out under her umbrella, laughing with Callum about the fool company that had paid more than expected. She walked 10 feet from my car and never saw me. She thought she had sold Grandma's farm to a stranger. She had sold it back to the woman she said was only good for errands. The money cleared. My mother started her remodel. Callum picked up his boat. Sloan posted photos from a resort in Arizona. I let them. Beatrice filed the first motions quietly, gathering proof from the bank, the witnesses, and Ruskin's sloppy paperwork. Then I finally opened Grandma's letter. Her handwriting filled 2 pages. She wrote that she had watched my mother circle the farm for years. She wrote that Callum had asked twice what the land was worth while she was still alive. She wrote that she had left me the farm not because I was perfect, but because I had loved it without calculating its price. The last line broke me. "When they say you were never in my will, lay this letter down and let them meet the truth they tried to bury." Christmas came. My mother invited me because she wanted an audience. She wanted everyone to see how generous she was being to the wounded daughter. I came in a gray sweater, carrying cranberry bread in one hand and the leather folder in my purse. The table was full, my mother at the head, Callum and Sloan near the wine, Ruskin near the hallway, sweating, though the room was warm. After dinner, my mother tapped her glass and made her announcement. The farm was sold. The family could move forward. Then she looked right at me and smiled. And Maren can finally stop pretending something was taken from her. She was never in the will. Callum lifted his glass. "Best thing Grandma ever did," he said. "Maren would have turned that land into a shrine for old ladies and stray cats." A few people laughed because people laugh when cruelty is dressed as a joke. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Then I asked, "Do you remember the company that bought the farm?" My mother blinked. "North Lantern something," she said. "Why?" I opened my folder and placed the deed in the center of the table. "North Lantern Properties is mine," I said. "I bought the farm." The room went still. My mother stared at the owner name as if the letters had slapped her. Callum's smile disappeared. Ruskin pushed his chair back. Then I laid down the real will. "This is Grandma's actual will, the one signed 3 years ago with a real attorney and real witnesses. It leaves the farmhouse and land to me." My mother whispered, "That is not possible?" I placed Grandma's letter beside it. "And this is the letter she wrote because she knew exactly what you would do." Nobody reached for the food. Nobody breathed loudly. Even the candles seemed quieter. I looked at my mother and said the sentence I had carried for months. "You were right about one thing. I was not in the will you used. I was in the one you replaced." My mother stood so fast her chair hit the wall. "Ruskin!" she snapped. "Tell her!" But Ruskin was already pale, already shaking, already saying he needed air. Callum looked at the deed again and started doing the math. His boat, Mother's kitchen, Sloane's vacation. All of it bought with money from a sale built on a forged document. I looked at my brother and said, "You told me I would waste Grandma's farm. I didn't. I saved it from all of you." Then I gathered my papers, thanked my mother for dinner, and walked out before dessert. I did not slam the door. I did not need to. The truth had already done enough damage. The court reopened the estate in January. Ruskin's document collapsed under real scrutiny. The witnesses were fake. The date was impossible. The signature was declared suspicious enough to trigger a deeper investigation, and Ruskin lost his commission before spring. The sale to my company remained valid because I had bought the farm fairly at public auction, but the money my family had taken had to be returned to the estate. My mother's remodel stopped with half the cabinets missing. Callum sold the boat at a loss. Sloane deleted her vacation photos. My mother told people I had ruined the family. I let her say it. Some people need a villain when the mirror becomes too clear. That spring, I moved a rocking chair back onto Grandma's porch and planted lavender along the fence. I kept the old barn, fixed the well, and gave 2 acres to a widowed neighbor so her goats could graze there like they used to. Sometimes I still hear my mother's voice in my head saying I was never in the will. Then I look at the deed, the real will, and Grandma's letter framed on the wall by the kitchen window. Family can laugh at you for staying. They can call your love weakness. They can sell what they never earned and toast themselves at Christmas. But paper remembers. Truth waits. And sometimes the quietest person at the table is the one holding the only proof that matters. So, if you have ever been the one who showed up, the one who drove there, signed the forms, cleaned the kitchen, held the shaking hand, and still got treated like you did nothing, remember this: do not waste your breath begging selfish people to see your worth. Keep records, keep calm, keep your dignity, and when the time comes, let the papers speak.